Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Chris Capossella, and I'm excited to have the next 75 minutes or so to share with you a lot of the details around the promise that we're making around amplifying the impact of your people. And this session is really going to drill down into the 2007 Microsoft Office system. I touched on it at a really high level in last night's keynote, but I wanted to go a lot deeper and give you a sense of some of the investments that we're making in 2007 itself. We've got about 3 technology demos. About 45 minutes of our session is going to be demonstrations, and the rest of it will be essentially framing up the things that we're investing in to hopefully help you amplify the impact of your people. And when we think about the Office system and what we're doing for end users and Vista, we really think about how this can, again, amplify the impact of your people. Let me go ahead and drill right into this. One of the big challenges we've seen in building the 2007 Office system are a few workplace trends that have emerged over the past few years. We've done a lot of research on this, and a lot of customers have told us, hey, there's a bunch of things going on in the workplace that are a lot different than they were 5 or 6 years ago. And this is an area that obviously means that software can really help. And there are three real trends that we focused on that led us to our big investments with the 2007 Office system. The first workplace trend is this concept of one world of business. And this is what we saw time and time again where our customers were telling us, hey, we're collaborating in lots and lots of different ways than we traditionally have collaborated. We need to work with partners and vendors across corporate boundaries in ways that we've never done before. The number of our people who are actually doing projects with folks outside our own company has really exploded in the last 5 years. So voicemail, phones, and email with email attachments, which are typically the traditional ways that people collaborate across corporate boundaries, aren't good enough. We really need much better solutions for working together across corporate boundaries. So we think that there's a real role for software in this sort of concept of a people-ready business as doing a much better job simplifying how people can work together across time zones, across geographies, across corporate boundaries. So we've invested heavily in unified communications and collaboration to try to do a great job helping you deal with this concept of one world of business. The second key trend is this really painful trend that we see end users dealing with, which is this concept of being always on and always connected. 5 years ago, there was a big push to drive connectivity, wireless networks, virtual private networks, etc. 5 years later, we have tremendous connectivity in many countries around the world. And yet what we're finding now is people are really struggling with the sort of feeling that they have to be connected all the time. They have to be checking email after they put their kids to bed. They have to be checking their email in the Starbucks line with their BlackBerry or their Pocket PC. They're just feeling a constant pressure to always be available. And that's something that people are really struggling with. So we think we can help in ways like helping people find information. The amount of information that's coming at people from a variety of different sources has really exploded. We know today you get about 10 times more email than you got about 7 years ago. Analysts predict you'll get about 8 times more instant messages in a few years than you're getting today. So the amount of data that's flying at people is not likely to decrease. So we think software has to do a really much better job of helping you manage all of that information, prioritize what's important, find information easily, and then take action on the information that you find, or improve the business insight that you have from all of this data. So we've got big investments in search and business intelligence to try to deal with some of the pain of people feeling like they have to always be on and always connected. Certainly there's an element of just people learning that they can go offline. And yes, we have tremendous connectivity, but it's okay to not be connected at all times. But that's not going to decrease the amount of information that's coming at them. So we think software has a role to play when it comes to helping you find information and improve business insight. And then the third trend is more of an organizational-wide trend. And this is what we call the transparent organization. This trend is basically about organizations needing to be more transparent about business processes and how those business processes are compliant with whatever regulations you have in your industry or your part of the world, whether it's Sarbanes-Oxley or ISO 9000 or the EU data directive. But at the same time, wanting to protect your intellectual property, your customer lists, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a real tightrope that a lot of customers are telling us that they're walking. They have to be transparent about certain business processes and make sure that they have documented them incredibly well. But at the same time, they don't want people walking out of their company with lists of customers when they leave the company. So we have major investments around helping make software secure and manage your content. And we talk about this as enterprise content management for the Office system. So when we look at these mega trends, we talk about these trends as what we call the new world of work. The workplace has changed pretty dramatically. And these trends are economic trends and social trends. And we think software has a role to play in helping you deal with some of the changing workplace around you. So that was sort of the basis for a lot of the research and development work that we did in the 2007 Office system. Now, how do we think about this Office system? When I talk about the Office system, I'm talking actually about a whole set of desktop applications, servers, and hosted services. But if I were to boil it down, we think about this, particularly for this audience, as you should think about this as really an infrastructure that can help you streamline the way your people do business. And there are three major capabilities that we've invested in with the Office system. That when most people think about Office on the desktop, you just don't think about these things when you think about Office. But it's really something we've been working on now for 5 or 6 years. And with 2007, we think we're doing some really breakthrough work that's best of breed in every one of these categories, but provides you with the single infrastructure to provide all of these capabilities. So at the capability level, we're making major investments in unified communications and collaboration, major investments in business intelligence, and major investments in enterprise content management. Many organizations buy point solutions for each one of these things. Different sets of servers, different sets of high-end solutions for BI or for ECM or for unified communications. We really want to bring this to the masses. We want to have the Microsoft, high volume, relatively low price to let you manage one solution set, one infrastructure set to provide all of these capabilities. Now, underpinning these three core capabilities are really these 6 services that we see that are incredibly important to each of these 3 capabilities. And I'll talk about these in a little bit more detail. But we're making investments in workflow so that whether you're doing communication and collaboration or BI or ECM, you can actually set up workflows so that content flows through your organization the way you want it to. And that's enforced by the Office system infrastructure. Search, enterprise search, desktop search, being embedded in all of these capabilities. You don't do unified communication and collaboration without being able to find somebody. You don't do enterprise content management without being able to do a search and have that search be restricted to just the content that person has the rights to see. Search is really something that flows across all of those capabilities. We're going to talk a little bit today about a really exciting technology called the Business Data Catalog, which lets you define business entities at sort of a metadata level from a whole bunch of different line of business systems that you have, and then reuse that business entity everywhere in your SharePoint infrastructure. Reuse it in your search infrastructure, reuse it in your portal infrastructure, etc. The Office user interface, as many of you may know, we've dramatically simplified the Office user interface in 2007. We've essentially gotten rid of menus and toolbars and replaced them with this ribbon that you see at the top of each one of the applications. We'll explore that a little bit today. But for developers and for you, you can actually extend this user interface. You can add your own custom tabs. You can integrate things right into our built-in ribbons, so they just show up right in the context of the Office UI. And that's a very important service. You may also know that we've invested heavily in XML as the default file format for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint next time around. And we're doing a lot to make it easy for you to use that XML file format to integrate all of this data that lives inside these documents with line of business systems. So it's not just binary data that's locked up on users' machines. It's literally part of a business process. And then, of course, the service around having a single website and security framework, so you can quickly build websites and plug in different security models into the websites that you're building inside your company. All of these things are built, of course, on top of Windows Server, on top of SQL Server. So all of the things that we talk about as a company for a secure and well-managed infrastructure apply to the Office system. So when you see that sort of gold platform at the bottom, you should think about that as Windows Server and SQL Server. And then the elements above it are essentially the Office system. Now, the way I've structured the speech today is to basically drill into unified communication and collaboration, enterprise content management, BI, and then these services, and to give you demos of these different pieces all along the way. So this is really the framework for the entire Office system, and it's the framework for the next 65 minutes or so. So when we think about the sort of value proposition of the Office system, again, at the upper left of the slide, we think we can provide you literally a single infrastructure for you to provide enterprise content management, unified communications and collaboration, and BI to your organizations. We think we have the opportunity here to do something that really hasn't been done well yet, and that's to unite the structured world of line of business systems with the very unstructured world of the way your end users actually do their jobs every single day. We think we can bring the data and processes together from the unstructured world to the structured world using the Office system. The key benefit for us, of course, that we have that's very unique is just the familiar interface and the familiar products of Excel and Outlook and Word and PowerPoint. Being able to participate in a workflow when you're inside of Word, or being able to digitally protect your Excel spreadsheets and publish them to a SharePoint server that's centrally managed. Those are things that we can do through the Office user interface, so our end users aren't actually having to learn some brand new high-end product to actually do content management or document management. They're literally just living inside of Word or Excel or PowerPoint. We think that's obviously a really big benefit that we can offer. And then the thing that's most surprising is the thing in the bottom right-hand corner. It's not just about the desktop apps. It's not just about infrastructure servers that provide email and calendaring, etc. It's actually a set of services that mean you can build a new class of applications that use Office as a front end to all of your line of business systems. So this is a pretty fundamental shift from the way a lot of people I talk to think about Office. When you say Office, they think Word, they think Excel. In fact, they don't even know Office. They know Word and Excel. They don't even know there's this thing called Office. But this is dramatically, dramatically different. We're talking about clients, we're talking about servers, we're talking about hosted services, and we're talking about solutions that are built on the Office system itself. Okay. I did this slide last night, so I'll do this relatively quickly, but I think it's always important to reiterate sort of what our roadmap is. When we talk about the Office system, we're actually using that term to talk about 35 different products. But I wanted to focus this slide on the core big products, if you will. Not listed on this slide are things like Project and Project Server, things like Visio. There's a whole slew of technology that I'm actually not going to list on the slide here, but I did want to mention the big ones. I'll start at the very top of the slide, and that's Office Enterprise 2007. Office Enterprise is a new desktop suite that essentially combines everything that you guys are already using from us. Most customers use Office Professional Enterprise Edition. That includes Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. It includes InfoPath. It includes Access. It includes Publisher. That's what the vast majority of our customers buy. With 2007, of course, we continue that product. Obviously, that product continues on. But we're actually adding OneNote for digital note-taking, which was previously available only standalone. And we're adding Groove. And we're wrapping that up in this product called Office Enterprise. And Groove, for those of you who don't know about it, is really an incredibly great managed peer-to-peer service and client application that makes it incredibly easy for people to collaborate across corporate boundaries without having to federate servers, without having to stand up a lot of IT infrastructure. And it's something that mobile professionals really, really love. So we're making all of that available in one suite. And included in that is also Office Communicator. An Office Communicator is the desktop secure instant messaging application that works with our live communications server. So today, a lot of people we see are rolling out a lot of new types of software, or their end users are just downloading stuff. People are downloading AOL's Messenger, downloading Jabber, downloading MSN Messenger, and you basically have an insecure messaging client running on a bunch of people's machines. Hard to patch, hard to know what's going on with IM inside those applications. With Office Communicator, that's secure. You can manage all of that. You can audit all of that. By putting it together in one suite, you can deploy it together, you can patch it together, you can manage all of your images together. So we think there's some benefit there. And we refer to this as sort of the ultimate collaboration desktop. So if you think about that as the core desktop suite, there are essentially 3 servers that wake up the Office system that are the core servers that we think the vast majority of people in an organization will want access to. Server number 1, of course, is Office SharePoint Server 2007. This is essentially the new name for what we used to call SharePoint Portal Server. It's now called Office SharePoint Server. And this is what we think of as the collaboration and content management server from Microsoft. So it brings together a whole set of technology or a whole set of capabilities that I'll talk about in a moment. But at a super high level, think about it as the content management solution and the collaboration solution in one server from Microsoft. Both Office Enterprise, all the applications inside of it, obviously, and Office SharePoint Server, we're due to finish those products in October. They both went beta 2 just a little while ago. We've had an unbelievable uptake on the beta. In the first 2 days, we had 500,000 people download beta 2 of these products, which was more than the entire Office 2003 beta cycle, the whole cycle. So in 2 days, we got just a huge amount of downloads. They brought down our activation servers. We had to bring them back up, add a bunch of hardware, and those are actually working well now, and that's good. And our numbers are actually much, much bigger than 500,000, and that's great to see. Obviously, the beta 2 feedback that people give us will determine exactly when we ship these products. Beta 2 is really the important milestone where we get massive use and get all that great data. But right now, the dev team is on track to finish those 2 products in October of 2006, as well as Visio, Project Server, etc., all the other apps too. The second hugely important server for the Office system is, of course, Exchange Server. Exchange Server 2007 is the next release of that product. This is, of course, the email and calendaring server. It's also the unified messaging server. Think about this as basically not needing more products to do voicemail and fax. You can basically manage that all just with the Exchange Server itself. That goes beta 2 next month. If you go to our booth here at the show, you can sign up for that beta 2. If you're an MSDN or TechNet subscriber, you'll get beta 2 automatically. And based on the feedback from beta 2, we'll obviously determine when we ship. We're hoping to be done by the end of this calendar year with Exchange Server 2007. And then the third really broad server for the Office system is the Office Live Communications Server. Today, that's in the marketplace. This little quote 12 is essentially just the code name for the next release. We'll announce the formal name shortly, and that'll be available sometime in 2007. And this is the real-time communication server. This is the single piece of infrastructure you need to have secure and scalable instant messaging, video conferencing, web conferencing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of the key things we're adding to this next version is the ability to do web conferencing on-premise. Today you have to use our live meeting service, which is a hosted service. In the next version of Live Communication Server, you have the ability to bring that in-house and control exactly who is getting invited to those meetings. And that's been the #1 requested capability for Live Communication Server. So when you think about the technology, the products that actually deliver on unified communication and collaboration, enterprise content management, BI, and those 6 services that I talked about, workflow, search, the file format, the UI, et cetera, it's literally these 4 products. And this gives you a sense for when we're actually going to deliver them. What I'd like to do now is to drill down into 3 slides that have a lot more detail on the 3 capabilities. And then we'll take a quick look at the products. We'll actually take a quick look at the demo. So we'll do one slide on UC&C, one slide on ECM, one slide on BI. And I will not talk through every one of these bullets, but I will talk through some of them. And we'll give you a sense of the investments that we're making. So unified communication and collaboration. This is all about simplifying how teams work together. So a single inbox for all communication types. right from within Outlook. You have access not only to your email and your calendar and your tasks and your contacts, but you also have access to all the presence information for all those people that are involved there. Who's online? Who's offline? Who can I schedule a meeting with? Who can I instant message right from there? You have your instant message history stored right there in Outlook. You can subscribe to RSS feeds on a SharePoint site, on the New York Times website, using IE7, and those RSS feeds get picked up, and you can use Outlook as an RSS reader, so you don't have to have a separate piece of software for that. Obviously, access to voicemail right from inside of email. And of course, this works not just on the Outlook rich client, but a lot of this works through the Outlook Web Access client, so when you're just in the browser, or it works on a smartphone, or the Outlook mobile applications. And of course, we've added the Outlook voice, We've added the Outlook voice access, so literally using any phone, you can dial into your Exchange server and get access to a lot of these capabilities. When it comes to empowering teams, we've had a real focus on doing a great job with taking things offline. Being able to actually take a SharePoint document library offline and have that with you. That's one quick example. We've made some investments in some of the things that we've seen in the consumer space that are very hot, like RSS, which I've already talked about. Wikis are obviously very, very interesting out in the consumer world. And blogs, of course, have taken off. A lot of companies say to us, hey, we've got new employees who are coming into the company and they just expect us to have this infrastructure in place. I don't want them going off to Blogster and starting their own blogs. If they're going to do blogs, I want to manage that myself. I want that infrastructure. So with Office SharePoint Server, we essentially make it incredibly easy to create a blog in any SharePoint site, or incredibly easy to instantiate a wiki as part of any SharePoint infrastructure. So if you want a product development team to actually work collaboratively on a product, you can create a wiki, they can create their own wiki that everybody is collaborating on. People are changing things dynamically. You can see all the history, et cetera, et cetera. If you want individuals blogging inside your company, the Office SharePoint Server makes it incredibly easy for you to set up that blogging infrastructure. How many people have heard of wikis? I just want to take a quick, okay. You can't, sometimes I ask that question, I get 10% of the audience, so I just want to make sure. So that's things that we're essentially baking right into SharePoint, knowing that it's a really new way to communicate. It's a really new way to collaborate, but we don't want you to have to go and buy some other thing to do blogs or wikis, or to just use something that's up on the internet and frankly is not particularly secure. The last one I'll talk about here is really around people search. When we talk about connecting people and processes and information, we'll talk a lot about workflow, but I wanted to talk about people search. We've done a lot of things in SharePoint to make our enterprise search capabilities far, far better than we've had in the past. So our relevance is much better. A lot of the things that you're used to seeing on the internet, like hit highlighting, we make much better. You know, spell check, sort of spell correcting, like did you mean to type this instead of the mistake you made? We'll do things like that. But the things we can do by searching inside your company, there are lots of interesting things that you don't really do a great job on when you search the internet. One thing is finding people, being able to actually find experts in your company using information that you store in AD, using information just that we find from documents that we search, using information that we can find in email. For people that are emailing on certain topics, we can make them experts on a particular topic and have that be surfaced through people search. So people search is a really big investment for us, as is this concept of my sites, where people can publish much richer information on their personal website. And then finally, we talked about the mobile office applications and just being able to do so much of what you do on your desktop, have that same experience on those Windows mobile phones with Outlook, PowerPoint, Office PowerPoint Mobile, Office Communicator Mobile, et cetera, et cetera. So huge investments in unified communication and collaboration, and this gives you a little bit of the sampling of some of the things that we're doing right out of the box. Let's move on to enterprise content management. Again, here, the promise, or not the promise, but the role of software is to help you secure and manage your content. So number one, we think we can do a far better job, and this isn't really written on the slide, we think we can do a far better job providing you with one piece of software, one server, that lets you manage all of your content inside your company, as well as what you surface to customers and partners outside your company. So Office SharePoint Server becomes the single infrastructure server to manage your intranet sites, your internal web applications, as well as your internet site that faces millions of customers, hundreds of millions of customers, as well as your extranet sites. We think we can have one publishing platform, and you can control that content. You can control when something gets published to your intranet, and then maybe 2 days later you want it to get published to your internet site, and you want to have things happen to that content in the meanwhile. Those are things that we can basically provide. So we've taken a lot of the capabilities that today exist in Content Management Server, and we've brought them into Office SharePoint Server, and there's just one product going forward. So you have literally one topology for all of your different sites, internal and external. And that's obviously super important. Searching across multiple repositories and line of business systems is a really important element of managing diverse content. So people search is one element of our enterprise search capabilities in Office SharePoint Server, but the other element is searching into line of business systems using this technology that we call the Business Data Catalog, where you tell us about those line of business systems, SharePoint can index them, can search them, and now that information can surface in a lot of different places. Compliance is obviously a big area of focus for us. We've done a lot of integration with Office SharePoint Server and the rights management services that are built into Windows Server. So now when you set up SharePoint workspaces, for every content type within a workspace, you can set the rights management that you want to be applied to those content types. So you can basically say, for my sales RFPs, I want to automatically have this be read-only for everybody in the company, or I want it to be editable only by this set of people, this Exchange distribution list can edit it, everybody else can only read it. I want to archive it automatically if the modified date hasn't changed for 6 months. I want to automatically put it off somewhere else and delete it from this SharePoint site. You get to essentially set all those rules. So there's a lot more around document retention, access and user control. It's great for obviously things like legal discovery. So there's a lot of capabilities that we help you do. We are not going to talk about Office SharePoint Server as a compliance solution. It helps you deal with the compliance challenges that you have, but it is a very horizontal product. So our partners will be building specific compliance solutions by vertical. There's a lot that we do to help you make your business processes compliant, but I wanted to make that the distinction that we're not going to be promoting this as a full-blown, compliance solution out of the box, which typically takes a lot of certifications and are typically very vertically oriented. We already talked about eliminating multiple web channels here. We've done a lot of work in SharePoint around multilingual support, which was one of our big requests. So being able to have sites that when you go to the site, it's in Japanese. When you go to a separate site, it's in English. Those are things we couldn't do before. We've added some great mobile device support. And then the sort of hidden gem inside of the Office system that we have a hard time figuring out exactly how to talk about is basically all of the investments we have around electronic forms. How many people have heard of InfoPath? Great. How many people are using InfoPath? A lot fewer. InfoPath is basically an XML-based forms tool that's included in the Office desktop suite that most of you use, that lots of non-programmers can actually build an InfoPath form. We talk about it as being harder than Word, but a lot easier than Access to basically put together a pretty common form. The problem with InfoPath last time around was that you needed InfoPath to fill out a form. Not only did you need it to design the form, but you needed it to fill out the form too. So it really only worked inside of companies where everybody had InfoPath on the desktop. One of the things that we're doing next time in 2007 is we've added forms services to Office SharePoint Server. So now you can build a form in InfoPath, store it up in Office SharePoint Server, and make that available to people outside your company on the internet. They can use a browser, they hit a web page, they click a link to fill in a form, and we render that InfoPath form right inside the browser. We'll render that InfoPath form right on a smartphone. Anything that supports DHTML 3.2. So it'll work on Safari, it'll work on Mozilla, it'll work Firefox, it works on a bunch of different browsers, on a bunch of different platforms. And it basically means you can have one form strategy to build your forms, and lots of people can consume them using a whole bunch of different clients. There's a great reach solution now for InfoPath. So we talk about that as one form for the client, for the browser, and for the mobile device. And then those forms are typically submitted to web services or back to a SharePoint site where you can aggregate them, you can do all kinds of great things because it's nothing more than XML. InfoPath just creates an XML file, and you can deal with that file in a lot of interesting ways. So one slide on ECM. Let me move on to business intelligence. This is all about helping you find information and improve business insight, and really to broaden these capabilities to the masses. Today, business intelligence is really for sort of the high priests of finance or the high priests of BI. Typically very high-end tools that are used by a very small number of people. We think we can do a great job sort of democratizing BI and really bring it to a far larger set of people to get the benefits of these big investments that you have in your data warehouses or your line of business systems. So this first area is really around integrating disparate business systems. And these 3 bullet points essentially are talking about the things that we've done in the Office clients, particularly Excel, to work really, really well with SQL Server and the SQL Server 2005 product. So analysis services, reporting services, etc. We've just done a lot of work inside of SQL Server 2005 to do a great job on high performance ETL, OLAP, data mining, reporting, etc., etc. Under easily analyzed complex business information, this is basically about doing a great job in Excel of surfacing a lot of those incredible SQL Server capabilities. So when you're defining a tremendous amount of detail in your data warehouse or in your OLAP cube, we can connect directly to that from Excel, and we surface a lot of that information without you having to surface it yourself in Excel. So when we connect to something in SQL, if you hover over a cell that's actually connected to a SQL cube, we'll actually surface in the tooltip of that cell a tremendous amount of the details that you've defined in SQL one time. So there's a lot better Excel as a first-class BI client to all of our SQL Server investments. We've done a lot of things in Excel and in Office to do beautiful visualizations of data. And we'll show you those in the demonstration. But beautiful heat maps that are very easy to create, using Visio to visualize data that's living in an OLAP cube really easily and beautifully is something that we're doing a great job on in 2007. And I already touched on this concept of the business data catalog. I want to go deeper in the demonstration, but you'll hear us talk about that again and again and again, because it's a great way to really surface all of this different line of business data to your end users through your portals, through your search, and in the future, right through the Office applications themselves. Under empowering decisions at all levels, this really gets to taking all of this data that's typically locked up in other systems and making it available to a far broader set of people. So with SharePoint, we've done a lot of work around making SharePoint the BI portal that you use. Make it very easy for you to create key performance indicators that you're showing through your portal. Make it easy for you to actually build a spreadsheet that you manage through SharePoint and that is surfaced through the browser using Excel services. Excel services are a new service that are part of Office SharePoint Server that literally render Excel spreadsheets inside of the browser and can do a lot of Excel recalculation and chart redrawing and data visualization recalculating. So right from within the browser, people can actually see the latest data. You might not want to give them access to the Excel spreadsheet that has all the modeling IP built into that spreadsheet. But you do want them to be able to see the graphical indicators, the charts, the visualizations. You might want them to be able to filter and pivot right in the browser, but you don't want them to be able to open that Excel spreadsheet that has all the IP in it. And that's something we've heard loud and clear, and we're investing heavily in this area of server-based Excel spreadsheets and calculations. You can't do everything on the server that you can do in Excel. You can do a lot of things. So for the financial services community, this is a huge one, where they've basically told us we can't have all this data just floating around in Excel that people are just emailing. We need to be able to lock it down. And with SharePoint, we let you build it in Excel, lock it down in SharePoint, and share it through the browser, basically for the people who need access to the reports, but not the actual data itself. KPIs, reports, scorecards, those are all the things that we think about when we think about empowering decisions at all levels. We've recently created a product on top of Office SharePoint Server. Today this is called the Business Scorecard Manager. That's the product that's in the market to help you create really good scorecards on top of SharePoint. We've actually announced the next generation of that as Office Performance Point Server, and that'll be available after the 2007 Office System Wave. But again, you can think about a base set of capabilities right in SharePoint, and then some more sophisticated scorecards and reporting capabilities built on top of that with Office Performance Point Server. So I mentioned that this is all built on top of Windows Server and SQL Server. Well, this is what we, of course, talk about as the secure and well-managed infrastructure. What are the things that we're doing to really build on top of this platform and hopefully make your life a lot easier in managing just a few servers that are managed just like all the other servers you know and are actually providing all of these capabilities? Our hope is, of course, that you can literally turn off some of the other systems that you've invested in and basically go forward with a smaller number of servers to manage. So, common security services and user roles across all of these things. That's something that we've invested heavily in. So obviously this is basically investing in Active Directory. If you're an Active Directory shop, you know that you have a single sign-on for your SharePoint, your live communication server, and your Exchange servers. Digital signatures on email and documents. New in Exchange Server 2007, you literally can provide digital signatures for your email without a third-party product. That's something we've gotten tons of requests for. Secure cross-firewall workspaces. A lot of people use SharePoint for workspaces inside their company, but we have not made it easy to do cross-firewall workspaces. In 2007, we make that far easier for you to build a SharePoint infrastructure for your employees. They can basically set up a SharePoint site and invite people who are not part of your company to that SharePoint site, and you can do that securely using federation and some other capabilities. Of course, Groove fits in incredibly well here too. Groove is a fantastic way for you to basically provide mobile professionals the Groove client, and there's a server that you can manage in-house if you don't want to use the relay service in the sky. But Groove lets people invite other people outside the organization to their Groove workspaces, and the infrastructure is very, very simple to get going. We're doing a lot around deployment and management. Of course, all the servers use MOM, so you can basically use MOM to monitor all of these servers that I'm talking about. We've done a tremendous amount of work around desktop deployment. In 2007, we'll provide you deployment tools that'll let you search your network for all your Excel and PowerPoint and Word and Access documents and databases. We'll scrub them, we'll look for VBA code in them, we'll report back to you, which sets of files have code in them, which don't. So you really have a much better understanding of what you can convert incredibly easily, where there's no code running, which things might break because there's some project reference you have to fix up, etc. So we're doing a lot on desktop deployment to make that a lot easier. Migration tools, not just for Office on the desktop, but for SharePoint and, of course, Exchange and Live Communication Server as well. And then, of course, we think that we're doing some things that help in terms of letting you set up an infrastructure that lets end users literally do self-service provisioning of workspaces right from within Outlook. So you want to set up a staff meeting that's a recurring meeting, and you'd like to create a workspace where you put your agenda and all your documents and send everybody to. You can do that with a single click of the mouse, given that you guys have set up a SharePoint server that self-provisions as people are checking that box. And that obviously reduces the help desk calls to say, hey, can you create a SharePoint site for me or a file share for me? So some of the things that we're doing around secure and well-managed infrastructure right there. Okay, I wanted to spend a little bit more time than I had last night on giving you a sense for enterprise content management, business intelligence, communication and collaboration. So I asked Tom Rizzo to join, I'll ask Tom Rizzo to join me on stage here and give us a quick overview. Tom,
thanks, Chris.
Welcome.
So there we go. So I'm excited to be here and show you all the new things we have around communication, collaboration, enterprise content management, BI. We'll go through the demo of all those different capabilities that Chris talked about. But this is an Office SharePoint server site. You're probably used to it from Windows SharePoint services or SharePoint portal server. We've got our team calendar, our announcements. One of the things we heard very loudly and clearly was that you wanted more templates, more capabilities inside of actual SharePoint. So the first thing I'm going to go into is I'm going to come into this case study task. And one thing that we heard was you love the issue tracking capabilities of SharePoint, but you wanted some sort of project management-like capabilities. This is not a replacement for project on the client or project on the server, but it gives you nice Gantt charting and a bunch of issue tracking directly inside of SharePoint. The other great thing is I can come in and I can actually take all of my issues offline into Outlook. And it's full bi-directional synchronization of your tasks from SharePoint into your Outlook environment, your document libraries, your calendars. So now Outlook is a fully featured offline client for your SharePoint environment. And you can see here I can take it off into Access, into Excel. We really wanted to integrate in SharePoint very closely with the Office client applications.
And it looks like you can view this as an RSS feed as well.
Exactly. We'll do that later on when we get to our blogs. The other thing we heard too, and Chris talked about, was you wanted to be able to take your InfoPath forms and use those in your business processes, but everyone may not have InfoPath on their client. And so with form services, you see I have a whole bunch of orders inside of here. When I click into one of these orders, we're now render directly that same InfoPath form in a web browser. No ActiveX controls, no downloads to the client. You get all the rich capabilities of InfoPath, things like date pickers and business logic and all the other things that you would expect from the InfoPath client now on the server. And so I can come in here, I can say inventory verified and submit this back up to my server. I have workflow behind here, and I'll show you how the workflow is actually built. But then my end users inside my company can use the rich InfoPath client to go and view this data. So it's seamless integration from the desktop all the way to the internet with form services. So the next thing that I just wanted to show you was, a lot of you said, we love the internet phenomenon of wikis, blogs, RSS. We really love that bottoms-up collaboration, but we want top-down control from IT so that we can control security and syndication and permissions and all these other things. With SharePoint 2007, we've integrated in all these internet concepts. So I can come and take a look at a wiki directly inside of SharePoint. So no longer do you have to go and install a third-party server, just install SharePoint. And I'll go into the promotion wiki here. And so now my team can collaborate between marketing, development, and everyone can start using the wiki just like they do other collaboration tools. And the great thing about the wiki is, since SharePoint supports versioning automatically, I can come and take a look at the history of my wiki. And if I go back and look at version 1.0, there wasn't very much there. And then if I go to version 2, we track what was added, what was deleted. As different people go and add things and delete things, the wiki actually maintains all of this. I can roll back to previous versions. I can even come in, if I have permissions now, and go and edit the wiki directly inside of the browser. We have rich editing built right into the web browser experience. So if I scroll down here, maybe I want to come in here and I say, here's my promotion plan impact, and I can just go and start typing in here, and I say, we really have no plan to do this. And then I can do all my rich text editing. I could change the color, I could change the font, I could change whatever I want inside of here. Now one thing is, we know, you told us, you love IE, but you also want to support other browsers. So we've been testing with SharePoint both Firefox and Safari on the Mac. So you'll be able to support a cross range of browsers now with SharePoint. And so let me just click OK, and you'll see that now my wiki's been updated. Other people can see it. They can sign up for alerts on it, all these other things inside of here. Now, it doesn't just stop with wikis. We also support blogs, so I have a link to a blog here. SharePoint is a fully featured blog server and also RSS feed reader, so you can put blogs into SharePoint using web parts. But you can see inside of here, you can manage comments, manage your posts, even do other things like permalinks. And so I'll just come up here, create a quick post inside of here. And I could do this through the web browser, but one thing that customers asked for in the Office client was tight integration with the internet technologies from the actual Office client itself. So I'm just going to come in and fire up Word. And Word now, if I just create a new document inside of Word, we have this new blog entry as one of the key templates directly inside of Word. And guess what? You can manage multiple blog accounts. So I'm going against SharePoint here, but if I wanted to come in and add a new blog provider, we support SharePoint, but we support MSN Spaces, Blogger, Community Server, plus you can even plug in your own blog provider inside of the actual Word in here, and we'll automatically post to the one that you tell us. Now you get all the great benefits of Word. I get, I'm at TechEd here, all the rich editing of Word. I can come in, Word has a random text generator, so I don't have to fat finger in my actual text. And we even get the picture support. So I can come in here, come and select some sample pictures. So look, put in the forest. We know TechEd's not in a forest, but I have no better pictures here. And then just to post this to the server, I just click on Publish inside of Word. Word goes off, talks to the blog server, tells me, hey, the post was published to my Orion team blog at whatever time. If I pop back to the browser really quickly, refresh my page, you now see Word to my SharePoint blog. Now, my site inside of SharePoint has a default blog. You can put blogs anywhere inside of the SharePoint environment. One other thing you may want to do is you may want to say, great, I love this. This is a great blog. I want to subscribe to this blog. I'm running in IE7. IE7 has capabilities to do blog reading directly inside of it. I'm just going to say subscribe to this feed. It will pop up. I can say automatically download any attached files. I can do the subscription customization inside of here. And then I can go and view my feeds inside of Internet Explorer. But we also now support, if I pop into Outlook really quickly, we support RSS feeds inside of Outlook as well. And one interesting thing that we do is you may say, God, you got RSS feeds in IE, you got RSS feeds inside of Outlook. How do they stay in sync? We automatically do that for you. So you saw I subscribed to that Orion team blog. Now that Orion team blog also automatically appears inside of my RSS feeds inside of Outlook. We have one common RSS feed store between IE and Outlook. So if I click inside of here, it will go off and download all the blog entries. It's actually going and doing that right now. Give it a couple of seconds, and then eventually it will download it. And there we go.
Cool.
The picture didn't come down. I didn't make it do that, but that's okay. But you see the power of Outlook.
And then these feeds are actually propagated up to Exchange Server. So when I'm using Outlook Web Access or I move to a new machine, I get all those feeds following me.
Exactly. They follow you wherever you go in whatever environment that you want to be in. Now, the other quick thing I just want to show you just around collaboration inside of Outlook, we've done a ton of enhancements inside of Outlook beyond just the bidirectional replication. You talked about integrating communication through voicemail and integrated communications. As you said, Dave Thompson will talk more about that in detail, but here you see I have a voicemail directly inside of my email.
Yep.
We have rich calendaring inside of Outlook, as you would expect, with all the color coding, all the rich categorizations. You see now Outlook even has task management built right into the calendar. Before, lots of customers said, hey, I've got these tasks, I set these due dates, I want those tasks due on that day to appear inside of my calendar. Well, right now on the bottom, you can just see the tasks that are due on particular days. So it is a very rich time and task management tool in Outlook 2007.
Those tasks can be SharePoint tasks, they can be project server tasks, OneNote tasks, Outlook tasks. We bring them all together in one view that you manage right there inside of Outlook.
Exactly. Integrated task management. The other thing that you told us is you loved the Outlook integration inside of Outlook 2003, but you wanted it to be a little bit richer. So I'm going to go to that team calendar you saw on my team site. You see that I support side-by-side calendaring here, but wouldn't it be great if I could see my team calendar from SharePoint overlaid with my personal calendar? Well, with Outlook 2007, you can do that. Just bam, there we go. We'll be transparent, whatever the background calendar is. So I'm looking at the team calendar now, and my personal calendar's in the background. If I flip it to my personal calendar, the team calendar becomes transparent. And guess what? The other thing you told us was you liked bi-directional replication now. Right now we have one-way sync. Well, here's this team brown bag lunch that is in conflict with my team offsite. I can just drag and drop inside of Outlook my SharePoint calendar, click yes, and it will synchronize that back up to the server. So I don't have to go back to my SharePoint site, edit the item, change the time. It's all built right into this environment.
That's great.
So that's a little bit on the collaboration side of the house. Let's go take a look at a little bit on ECM. So let me go back and pop up to my main team site here. Again, and I have a press release that I need to work on. So I'm going to go into the press release document library. And the first thing you'll notice inside of here is I'm going to go and open up this Word document. We try to make the visualizations better inside of SharePoint to make them look more like windows when you're popping inside of here. I'll go and edit this press release. You can give it a couple of seconds here. Word's thinking. The first thing you'll notice is something popped on the top of the screen. This is called the Document Information Panel. With content management, metadata is actually very important for content management, both for search and security and those sorts of things. And how many of you actually fill out metadata in Office? God, the sea of hands is just amazing of how many of you actually do it. Actually, no one raised their hand, actually. So we try to make metadata pop as a first-class citizen inside of Office 2007. You can synchronize the metadata that you see up here with the actual document. So as I type, look at this title, as I type in here, AdventureWorks, and I'm going to add in cycles, you'll see that it will change up inside of the metadata. So that metadata can flow into the document, from the document into the metadata, from the metadata into SharePoint. So we have this rich, seamless integration inside of here. Now I need to add a little bit to this press release. I'm going to pop back into my team site, and I'm going to do a quick search. I'm going to search for bike. And this is the enterprise search that Chris was talking about. We continue to search rich enterprise content repositories like Exchange, Lotus Notes, file shares, websites, SharePoint sites, across all your different document types. But now we add into SharePoint rich people search. So we search not only the people information, but we also search expertise. So I can see results by social distance of who I know, who those people know, and then everyone else. So if I needed to find an expert on a customer, expert on a particular technology topic, I can drill into this and actually do rich people search inside of SharePoint. And then the other thing too is we support now the business data catalog, so we do search of line of business applications. This is actually coming from my CRM system about all my different customers, and I see that Bike Experts is one of my customers. If I click through, rather than getting content about Bike Experts, I now get a profile page for that customer from my CRM system. And this is Excel Web Access. So this is what Chris talked about, where you can take Excel and now move it up to the server and render your Excel spreadsheets, charts, and all those rich visualizations now on the server.
So that was literally created in Excel and then published to SharePoint, and it's being rendered in a web part.
Exactly.
And recalculated every time I refresh the page.
Exactly. We'll do that in a couple seconds on our BI dashboard. But here I'm going to take the account team. I'm going to put it into my Word document inside of here. Let me just paste it. Make a little bit of room. And then obviously with the Office applications, we support rich editing inside of here, so I can come in and modify the styles or modify any information about the different tables inside of here. I won't bore you with all those details, but you can come and take a look at that. So let me just save this off. This is a press release. I need to get it approved by legal. I need to get it approved by my manager. Before, I'd have to go to a different application to kick off a workflow. But right inside of SharePoint, we support rich workflows out of the box, and I'll show you those in a couple minutes. But to start a workflow, I can just do it directly from the Office client. So I'm just going to click on the Start Workflow. We support multiple workflows associated, which are different content. And so here's my press release workflow. I'm going to kick it off. Give this a couple seconds inside of here.
The fields you see at the top in this collection pane here, those you literally defined in SharePoint when you set the SharePoint doc library up.
Exactly.
And then there's no code here. You built those in SharePoint, you set up those columns, and then for this Word document, you're essentially pulling those fields right out and populating them here, and they'll get propagated back up into SharePoint.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So the workflow actually is kicked off. Let me go back inside of my portal now, and you'll see if I go back into my document library, we have this press release review status inside of here. And so if I click into any of these, as the originator of the workflow, I want to maybe see what the status is of my workflow. I can click in and look at my in-progress information, and you get a rich drill down into the workflow. You can come in and add new approvers, kill off the workflow, see where the tasks are, see the history of the workflow, who approved what they approved, all that information inside of here. Now, just the quick final thing that I want to show you is, let's imagine the workflow completed successfully, and now I need to do a little bit of records management on here. I need to be able to do some retention. With SharePoint, we now support rich records management through policies. And so here you can quickly come and create your policies inside of SharePoint. And I'll just come into my product news or my company news, and here I'll click on this define my policy. And we support not only doing things like retention policies, but we support rich auditing, so you can see when someone edited a document, when they checked it in, checked it out, deleted it, restored it, all these different things inside of here. Plus, we even support ANSI barcoding. So if you print out the document, send it off to a secure site, you want to hook up your paper-based document with the electronic document through barcodes, SharePoint supports that richness now. So that's a little bit of ECM. And
so this expiration column, you're literally specifying how you want things to expire and what workflows you want to kick off when certain actions or properties happen. And the server is going to manage that, kick off those workflows at the right time.
It's all on the server side. This is actually built on the Windows Workflow Foundation. So we don't reinvent workflow technologies here. When we get to the developer demo next, I'll show you how we actually build all this stuff inside of SharePoint.
Cool.
And then, of course, with the web content management, we now support very rich. Let me just pop back here. Very rich conversions from your existing content types to new content types. So for example, if I want to take this Word document, move it out to my website, you can now convert from Word to a web page, or from InfoPath to a web page. So there's all these conversions as well for web content management. The last demo that I just want to show you quick is around business intelligence. So directly inside of SharePoint, we now have this idea of BI dashboards. So I'm going to go into my sales dashboard. And on my sales dashboard, you see a couple of things. You see announcements. You see the new KPI list that we support, or the key performance indicators. So I have my sales targets, my cost of goods. We give you the goals, the values, the trending, and the status. And then you may say, you know what, Tom, I really want to be able to get a chart up there from Excel, right? So let me go and find my chart. So I'm just going to go to my sales team site here. I'm going to go to my shared documents, and I'm going to open up an Excel document directly from my team site. And this is a new feature of Vista, warning me about security. And this isn't very pretty. So let's make this a little prettier with the new BI visualizations inside of Excel. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sales. I'm going to do some conditional formatting on here. I'm going to do some data bars. So now I can see what's good, what's bad, just by the length of the bars. We support also other rich conditional formatting like heat maps. So I'll come in here and I'll do a quick heat map on there. And then as easy as clicking a mouse, I can come in and I can even do icon sets. End users love icon sets. I'll do some nice arrows to do trend information inside of here. So you can see in just a couple of seconds, I really now can visualize what's good and what's bad in that sea of data.
And those visualizations update as the data changes, obviously.
Exactly. And then the other thing too is I may want to be able to insert a chart. So inserting a chart is as easy as just going through and selecting some information. There's my sales chart now. And we've tried to make everyone a professional graphics person inside of Office 2007. So you see I can just click on a design, and now I have a professional looking chart. Now to get this into my web page, very easy. I just go and select Publish, and Excel Services is built right into the Excel client. And I can select, oops, let me actually just save this off. Oh, that's a bug actually that we have in Vista. It will work. Anyway, and so let me just go and select my website. So there's my Excel document up on my SharePoint site. And I may not want to publish out everything. I may want to just publish out that chart. So you can go through and select whether you want to publish out the entire workbook or the entire sheet. But I'll just say publish out this chart to my website. Click OK, save it off. And now I'm going to go back to my dashboard. I'm doing a little bit of Julia Child. I already dropped on the Excel Web Access web part inside of here. I'm just going to restore it. And now you see my chart is actually published out to the server.
Or an earlier version of it.
Or an earlier version, yes.
Demo.
I have to refresh it inside of here.
I getcha.
And
Cool.
there you go. There's a chart with the little refresh inside of there.
Great.
The final thing I just want to show you is around the KPI list. It's very easy to add new KPIs. We support pulling KPIs from SharePoint, from Excel, from SQL Server analysis services, or you can even just manually enter information into that KPI list. And to make you all heroes when you go home for your end users, we support changing the icons directly from the web page. So if your end users say, I don't like the stoplights, I want smiley faces, just a little click for you on the back end. And now, oops, it didn't work. Well, it will work in the final release. You'll get all the different icons inside of here.
I get the idea.
So that was really quickly Unified Communications, BI, and ECM.
Great job, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you,
Well
Chris.
done. Let's go ahead and switch back over. Okay, I wanted to transition a little bit. If we could go back, there we go, on the slides, that'd be great. And I wanted to talk about some of the capabilities that we're excited to be bringing to developers and to people building solutions. We've seen a huge problem with this thing that we call the last mile of productivity, where you basically have back-end systems on the back-end line of business solutions and end users that work in a very, very different way, much more ad hoc, interrupt-driven work style than typically the incredibly structured style that when you enter in a transaction to an ERP system. We really feel like there are major investments that companies have made in these systems and that we have not seen really come to fruition. So there are things we're doing with the Office system to really try to close this last mile of productivity and what we call the results gap. And I wanted to spend the rest of the time talking about what we're calling Office Business Applications. Office Business Applications are a new breed of application that we think with 2007 people will be able to really build in earnest. And the whole concept here is to bridge this results gap, to use Office on the desktop, the Office clients and SharePoint as the front end to your line of business systems. So you see the 2007 Office systems basically as a front end to CRP, CRM, ERP, supply chain management, PLM, legacy applications you have inside your own company. And you think about Office on the desktop and SharePoint as front-ending those for all different kinds of applications. So imagine an HR system where somebody is literally writing an offer letter in Word, and as they're typing in the details of the offer letter, they're able to pull information right from within Word out of your PeopleSoft system and pull in the right salary information, the right details of the offer that they want to make, perhaps see information from the interview loop that may be stored in some corporate database that you guys create for your interview processes. You can imagine that for a salesperson, putting together an RFP plan and how much work goes into doing that RFP the same time again and again and again. Being able to front-end Siebel or a couple of systems as you're putting together that RFP and pulling out the salient information that they need to put together that RFP. So when we think about these Office business applications, of course we think about them as being easy to use because you're using Office. We think about them being collaborative. People can work together in building these and using these solutions. They want to have access to other people in the organization. So search and presence and having that contextual information is incredibly important. Being able to literally be in context of the document you're working on and get access to the information that might live in a back-end system right from within the document is incredibly important. Role-based, obviously, if you are doing a particular role in your organization, you should be able to have an Office business application that's specific to your role that interfaces with the various systems on the back end. Incredibly important as well. So we think about Office business applications. They'll exist for HR roles, for sales and operations, for R&D, for finance, et cetera, and they will front end all of these huge investments that corporations have in line of business systems. Now today, there are already a couple of these sort of in existence. Number one, of course, is the work that we're doing with SAP around the product that we call Duet. With Duet, we're literally giving you access to SAP information and actions right from within Outlook. Being able to report vacation time right from within Outlook. Being able to do time and expense management at some point right from within Outlook. You're front-ending SAP using the Office desktop applications. A classic example of an Office business application. The Dynamics team at Microsoft is obviously building a tremendous number of applications using Office on the desktop and SharePoint as their web infrastructure for doing this class of applications. So if you've seen MS CRM, they've literally built the user interface right inside of Outlook. And in the next release, they'll be using a lot more SharePoint technology as well. So we've got work with SAP. Our own Dynamics business group is doing this. But we expect a lot of corporate developers to be able to build these types of applications and, of course, ISVs to be able to build these applications that they sell separately as well. Now, how do we do this? How do you actually build these Office business applications? Well, again, it comes back to these 6 services, what we call our Office business application services, that are essentially built right into the Office system. Workflow, search, the business data catalog, the extensible UI, the open XML file formats, and the website and security framework that I talked about a little bit earlier. I touched on these points already. What I think would be most interesting, we've got extensible workflow built on the workflow foundation, the business data catalog for data integration, etc. I don't want to work through the details of this slide other than to say that we're enabling this for all different types of developers. If you're a hardcore developer, you're going to use Visual Studio and the Visual Studio tools for Office. If you're actually more of a business analyst and you want to design your own workflows, the Office SharePoint Designer tool allows you to build your own workflows visually. InfoPath, Excel, and Access let you build these types of solutions as long as you've done the work to connect up to the backend system and support the information you want them to have access to. So I want to ask Tom to come back on stage and give us a sort of a 5-minute view of XML, workflow, and the business data catalog. And then I have sort of an announcement to make about some future things that we're working on, and we'll wrap things up. So Tom, come back up.
All right, Chris, thanks again.
Sure.
So I showed you the workflow in progress. Let me show you how we actually created that workflow inside of SharePoint. We ship out-of-the-box workflows built on the Windows Workflow Foundation, so you can customize, you can create new workflows using a number of different tools, but let me just show you the out-of-the-box workflows. We ship a number of them. So I just come into my document library, I click on Add New Workflow. You see we have approval routing, we even do digital signatures, so you can route around documents and collect digital signatures on those, disposition approval, issue tracking. So let's just take an approval one, and I can just type in a name like Tom or something like that. And we can have these workflows trigger whenever a new item is created or when an item is changed inside of SharePoint. And then we ship this UI out of the box for being able to configure our out-of-the-box workflows. But again, this is customizable by developers. And so you can plug in ASP.NET or InfoPath forms inside of here. Serial, parallel routing workflows, all the things that you would expect from a workflow system. Now I'm showing the out-of-the-box. Let me quickly bring you over to a tool called SharePoint Designer, where you can also create workflows inside of SharePoint Designer. You may have known this previously as Front Page. Now Front Page is actually 2 things. It comes into SharePoint Designer and Expression Web Designer from the Visual Studio team. And creating a workflow inside of SharePoint Designer, again, is as easy as just File, New Workflow. And we ask you what list you want to associate your workflow with. So I'll say my press releases, and I'll say automatically started when I create an item or change an item. And if you know the Outlook Rules Wizard, creating a workflow, this is targeted at more information workers or IT pros. You just come and set some conditions, and we ship a number of conditions out of the box. So I'll just say if a field contains a particular value inside of here, like the stage of the workflow or the stage of the document, we are context sensitive, so we know the data type. We pull out the different properties for that data type. So I'll say if it's content complete, then I can do some sort of action. So maybe send an email, change an item property, assign a to-do. And so here I'll just send an email, and we support things like workflow lookups. So I can come in here and I can say, actually address it to, and use a workflow lookup. Maybe I say the current person it's checked out to.
Very nice.
Or that sort of stuff. So it's not static information. We can pull context from the workflow, context from the item. You can even do formulas inside of the subject, the message body, all these sorts of things. Now you may say, great, I love SharePoint Designer, but I'm a Visual Studio person. I love to work.
So you literally design that graphically, save that off. That workflow now will show up in the list of workflows up on the SharePoint site for that doc library.
Exactly.
And you can apply it to other doc libraries as well, change the conditions.
It's very, very easy.
Got it.
Now you may say, I love SharePoint Designer, but I'm more of a Visual Studio person. So in Visual Studio, we support this for the professional developer who wants to build workflows. And so we integrate in, as I said, with the Windows Workflow Foundation. We just released this something called the ECM Developers Kit. So you see this SharePoint Server new template inside of Visual Studio, so you can go and build workflows using the built-in capabilities of the SharePoint workflow engine, all the custom capabilities. But here in Visual Studio, I can come in, create a new sequential workflow, and as a developer, I can do things like, invoke a web service, just it's a drag and drop environment for the developer directly inside of Visual Studio. So it's pretty easy to develop workflows in Visual Studio, and they flow right into the SharePoint environment. So you get all the rich capabilities I showed you from the Office client, from SharePoint Designer, but you can develop it all inside of the Visual Studio
And when you're done, again, it shows up just like a built-in workflow would.
Just like a built-in workflow would, and an IT pro can say, I want a workflow on this document library, but not on this document library. It's completely controllable by the IT pro. The final thing is I want to show you the Business Data Catalog. So let me just go into the management for the Business Data Catalog just really quickly here. And so this is the central admin for SharePoint. You see, here's the Business Data Catalog inside of here, the administration. We have this idea of business entities and being able to create a hierarchy of these entities. So here's my AdventureWorks that connects to a back-end database. And I have all these different entities inside of here, my contacts, my products, my product categories. How do I get it in here? Well, it's just an XML metadata definition. So if I go and I show you the XML here, it's always fun to demo XML and these things. Look, it's XML. Exciting, color coding. But it's as easy as creating the XML and loading it up into the server, and you can create all these different entities and all different sorts of business actions on these entities. So let me come back and actually click into one of these entities, the reseller entity. And you see I have different fields that I have inside of this entity, and I have these rich business actions. So directly I can create a new proposal. I can view a map of where this reseller is actually located. All of this data is stored inside of SharePoint and usable in search. When I searched, you saw that information. But you may want to use it in other locations besides just search. So let me just pop back here, go back to my homepage, and go back to my list. This is just a list inside of SharePoint. And if I come and I go and I customize this list and create a new column in here, we still continue to support things like text and currency. But you see this new business data column type. This goes against the business data catalog, that goes against the back-end system. I can do a lookup against my back-end and see, I've got products, I've got resellers, all the things you just saw in the admin. I'll say use my resellers. It will pull out the default field to display, which is name, and then I can pull back annual sales and maybe the minimum payment amount that reseller expects. Click OK. And if I go back to my list now and I go and edit one of these folks, rather than typing in a customer name, right, and I go and edit my item, rather than typing in a customer name, I start typing bike. I do a name resolution. It actually does the name resolution against the back-end system.
Very cool.
And I can come and select popular bike lines, click OK. And you see now I get back their annual sales, and I get all those business actions that I defined in the back-end system. So very easily flowing from the back-end into my actual other SharePoint constructs.
So you're essentially using XML to build a metadata definition of an object. That metadata contains information that essentially pulls it out from some back-end system.
Exactly.
And then you're integrating into not only search, but you're actually integrating it right into a SharePoint list, including actions and things like that that you can take on that business object.
It's very easy now to connect to back-end business systems and create business entities with the business data catalog.
Cool. Do you want to do some XML, or are we going to?
No, we're
time-wise.
Yeah, time-wise,
Great.
we're good.
Thank you.
All right,
Good job.
thank you, Chris.
Well done. Okay, so I hope that gives you a sense of the Office Business Application services that we're building right in and shipping with the 2007 Office system. We only touched on Business Data Catalog and Workflow. There are a bunch more that are here that we'd love you to explore. What I wanted to do now is essentially switch gears a little bit and talk about one of the things that we're doing next time around. We think it's really important for us to keep investing in connecting Office to line of business systems and making it very easy for developers to build Office business applications. So one of the things that we're working on is what is a service, like the other 6 that I talked about earlier, that we're calling the line of business interoperability service for Office SharePoint Server, or what we call sort of Lobby for short. And Lobby is going to feel like a very natural extension to many of the things you just heard about with the Business Data Catalog. What is it? Well, first of all, the whole goal here is to deliver line of business data, but also line of business processes right into the Office clients. So there'll be reusable client and server UI components. What Tom showed with the Business Data Catalog was actually all in SharePoint, and it was read-only data. And it was data. There wasn't a lot of process there. We think we can do a great job giving you services that you can add to the Office clients and to Office SharePoint Server to actually deliver line of business data and processes there. Of course, the familiar Office user experience is a big win for people. They know how to use Word. They know how to use Excel. Great if they can connect up with business processes. And key to Lobby is the ability to directly update line of business systems from SharePoint or the Office client. Today, the work we're doing with the Business Data Catalog is essentially read-only, unless you're willing to write a lot of code. With Lobby, we'll make it a lot easier for you to make that read-write, and we'll make it a lot easier for you to surface those elements right in Word and Excel and PowerPoint, not just in the SharePoint site. And then, of course, we'll provide tools and an application runtime. So again, it's very metadata driven, just like you saw with the Business Data Catalog. So you can reuse things across the Office applications. And there'll be a runtime for the actual UI, for doing the connectivity, and actually for syncing. So to give you a sense of how we think this will behave and to show you a little the code actually running, I wanted to actually bring Chris Karen up, who's the general manager of our Office Business Applications team. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
Take it away.
Great. Well, thanks for the time. And what I want to show you is an example Office Business application that we hope a customer might build, in this case to deal with a scenario around managing orders and managing vendors. So in this scenario, I'm Ben Miller. I'm a buyer working for a bicycle manufacturer. And like most people, start my day on Outlook, seeing what's in store for me from my calendar. I notice a new task that's been sent to me by my boss. And when I open it up, I see a few things. A traditional email from my boss saying there's a supplier issue. A supplier's been sort of regularly late on delivery. In this case, it might present actually a manufacturing delay. I also see a workflow surfaced alongside my email that's flagging the issue and flagging my role in resolving the issue that's visible to her on SharePoint and to me also in SharePoint and in Outlook. If I open up her email, I see some detail. It's an email from John Peoples, my supplier, saying there's a production delay that might hurt their shipment timing. I also noticed that if I go over to John and look at Outlook properties, some new functionality enabled by Lobby. You see here there's a tab called Vendor and also an icon called Vendor Information. So if I hover over on Vendor and say Show Details, you see here that I've acknowledged or related this contact in Outlook to an entity called vendor. I could create entities for orders, for suppliers, for customers. In this case, it's a definition of a vendor, a standard set of actions and information displayed to me around all the vendors I manage, such as parts they supply, documents from SharePoint related to that vendor that are automatically searched and brought up to me and surfaced.
So this UI, Lobby is essentially providing these UI capabilities right inside of Office, and you're bringing together structured and unstructured information right there in that UI.
Exactly right. So whether I'm online or offline in this scenario, I see not only vendor information, under this view, the parts they supply to me, the inventory of parts on hand I have in my organization, so I'm linking vendor information with inventory information. I can see the part models that relate to bikes I manufacture. So in this case, for chainring bolts, I can see the bike models that part plays a role in. In this case, I can see back to my manager's email, there's a supply shortage around a particular part called a chainring nut. So seeing there's an inventory shortage, I can also, in the same view, look at other suppliers that also provide that part to me. In this case, there's a couple different options. I have a shortage. I want to investigate. So I have an action here made available to me because of my role called Compare Suppliers. Gives me rights to view cost information and other delivery information around a set of vendors that provide this part. So I've linked to Excel automatically. Excel's opened up. I'm in context. This panel on the right, this task pane with vendor information, follows me throughout the Office clients with the information around the vendor I'm working with. In this case, I can see cost information for alternative suppliers. I can see delivery performance for alternative suppliers. In this case, Beaumont Bikes is my troubled supplier. If I look actually at Bike Satellite, I can see not only is their price lower, but their delivery performance is the same. So they're an appealing supplier. So one great thing about Lobby Services is I can do this analysis, think about Bike Satellite as my plan B supplier, and actually take all of this offline. So I could leave the office in a normal scenario. In this scenario, because I'm going to stay in front of my terminal, I'm going to disconnect from the server, and here I'm in offline mode. So all this information is available offline. Order information, cost information, documents from document library. Let's say in this scenario, I go off-site, I meet with Bike Satellite, I figure out they're a good supplier, they have inventory, they can solve my problem. So I'm going to actually view open orders I have today with Bike Satellite. I see today I have one already open for chainring nuts. They confirm they can supply additional products to me, so I'm going to increase order, update my order. It's asked me whether I want to create this order and link it to an existing workflow, which I do, the problem my boss brought to my attention, or I can create a new workflow. I attach the action to the existing workflow, and when I come back in the office, as you'll see here, and reconnect back to the services and the network, I'm synchronizing back to Lobby Services. So updating the order in my order management system and linking my action to the problem that was given to me by my boss. And just to show that, if I come back to the email and the task I was given to resolve the issue, sorry. And do a refresh, the workflow has changed. So my action to submit an order to an alternative vendor to supply more chainring nuts has happened, and I've effectively addressed the shortage. If I go back though and see that I really want to solve this problem long term, I have other available actions available to me as part of this task pane, one of which is to actually change the status of the vendor. So because I believe this vendor might be a better long-term supplier, I can take this action, automatically linking me over to Word. Again, I stay in context. I show a Word file here, and actually template, to change the vendor status. This is a form my company uses. I have the information, in some cases, pre-populated with the form around the vendor I want to change the status on. I have an action available to copy open orders into the form, which is part of my company policy to show the vendor is actually one we use a lot. Again, in the menu, I have actions, in this case, the ability to submit the document. So I've completed the form to request a vendor status change. I submit the document. I attach it back to the task I received from my boss. And just to show you what's happened, if I actually go back to Excel as an example, just to show you the task pane, that preferred vendor recommendation is now living in SharePoint and going into the workflow that my company has for approving a vendor status change. So just to wrap this demo up, if I go back to the original task again and refresh the workflow, you can see the additional steps I've taken to solve the problem permanently showing up visible to me and to my manager around not just having an order to address the supply shortage, but changing the vendor status so I have a better vendor long-term to supply my parts for me.
So there's a UI, essentially a UI component that we're seeing reused across all the Office applications.
Exactly right.
We're seeing you do customization of the ribbon UI, so integrating into that element of Office Business Application Services, and the offline capabilities and the round-tripping capabilities, where you can actually make changes and have that be pushed back up to the line of business system.
Exactly
all
right.
delivered through Lobby Services.
Yeah, and in this scenario, actually, it's not just working with one back office system. I have a vendor management system, an order management system, so you can bring together multiple back-end systems into a unified process to simplify the life of a buyer in my case.
And the information worker, the buyer, couldn't care how many systems you're working with, just has the actions they can do.
Exactly right, exactly right. The vision for this product is to be one where, as much as possible, companies that want to front-end all their applications with Office can do so, leveraging what we've seen today in earlier demos and also lobby services.
And when will people be able to play with this and get their hands on the technology?
So this is the first public announcement of the functionality. We're going to have a preview late this year, so late 2006, and we expect to put it into market and production later next year.
Great. Chris, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet, Chris.
Good job.
Thank you.
Let's quickly switch over and I'll wrap up as I know we're running late. So we've been working very hard on this concept of office business applications and the services you need to build them, and Lobby is an exciting one that we wanted to share today, even though it's a little bit further out than the 2007 Office system. I think from the demos you get a sense for what the value really can be of using these together. So just to wrap up our session, you can get the Office System Beta 2 right now. You can literally just go up to Microsoft.com/office/preview and download the desktop applications, SharePoint, and some other things. There's a lot you can do to start building these Office business applications today. MSDN has a great site for us, and we actually have a pretty interesting Develop Without Borders contest co-sponsored by HP. You can see the link, developwithoutborders.com. If you start building Office business applications or doing any development with the system, you should check that out. We've got some interesting things that we're doing around that contest, and you can go there for more information. With that, I hope you get a sense of the breadth of investment that we're making with the 2000 Office system. Thanks very much.